I'm Traci.
And I'm Leena.
And we love healing children.
In fact, we're the co-owners and founders of Healing Children, LLC.
And this is our podcast, The Bumpy Road to Healing, where we get real about what children need emotionally.
And how best to support them.
We skip the fluff.
And get right to the heart of it.
Hello, my name is Traci Glover.
Hi, guys.
Well, hello, Frances.
Can someone fix my hair? It's a little,
Frances, you are a little bit out of control.
well, thanks. Hey, what are you guys doing?
Well,
I see these cameras and this light.
Okay,
and
all right, okay.
Whoa, it's so cool.
All right, Frances. All right, we're talking about typical development.
Typical development?
Yeah, and I think your mom has talked to you about this a little bit. Hasn't she talked to you a little bit about this?
I mean, I've been playing Minecraft because I really like playing Minecraft. Did you guys see the last thing I built? I built this castle and it was wild.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
so remember when your mom said you had to go play outside more with other kids?
Yes.
And why did she tell you that?
Because sometimes I may be immature.
Oh, you're so close. Yeah, she feels like, you're not playing with other kids enough.
Oh.
And because of that, you do things like interrupt people,
Oh.
and you may not always be the best about like taking turns with kids and like listening to their ideas and stuff.
Oh, well, I can do that.
We think so too, and so does your mom.
Yeah, my mom's pretty cool.
Well,
I mean, except for when she makes me turn my Minecraft off.
I know. But we're just really worried.
Well, there's nothing to worry about.
But what's going to happen when you need to get along with people, Frances? And
Well,
yeah.
okay, maybe I can try.
Well, this is the idea. Is you need to get out and play with kids more, and you'll kind of learn how to give and take and negotiate with friends and listen and take turns.
Well, what if they don't like me?
Oh, that's what you're worried about. Well, you know what? We're all worried about that, but you know what? Some kids are going to like you. Some kids aren't, and it's going to be a learning experience that you have to go through to grow up.
Okay.
You can do this.
Okay.
You can handle this.
I'm going to go outside right now.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay. Welcome to our first podcast. And we're going to be talking about development, which is actually a very important thing when it comes to mental health.
It's incredibly important. And we're super excited to have this discussion because we're often having to have this discussion at our schools with teachers and with parents.
And when we're conducting private therapy with parents too. Like it is, I think the more I work as a school counselor, the more I realize development is a huge piece to mental health.
It is huge. And we've kind of lost that. We've gotten really busy diagnosing every behavior that kids have that are not appropriate for their age. And when we don't understand what's like normal development and typical development and the different stages of development, it's really hard to differentiate between, is this a mental illness that we have going on, or are we really looking at some immaturity and there's, healthy boundaries need to be put in place so the child can start to mature.
That's right.
So
we don't know what's going on until those boundaries are around the behavior. We have no idea if we have a mental health issue. So let's talk a little bit about what we're seeing in the schools, because I think people don't always realize how, you and I both started in education in 1999 and we had behavior issues. We had some children that we worked with some significant behavioral problems. But as we've been in the profession more and more,
it has increased exponentially.
Absolutely. Like it's not uncommon to have a student come in who's got out of control behavior and if they get told no by a teacher, or they're expected to complete their work. And we're not talking about work that they can't do. This is work that they can do, or it's an expectation to follow a teacher direction. We get things like the classroom gets torn apart.
Yes. Screaming, yelling, hitting, kicking, spitting, throwing chairs, running away, hiding, some of those behaviors that you might typically, like an 18-month-old might do some of those things. Like it's very common for an 18-month-old to think it's funny to run and hide or to throw temper tantrums if they don't get their way. We're starting to see that in much older children. And we're starting to see it more. Like when I first started, I'd have kindergarten teachers who might have one kid every couple of years that was really tough. And now what I'm seeing in our schools is they're having 5 or 6 per classroom of kids who their maturity and behavior level is at such a lower level than expected.
And so what ends up happening is, you know, you have educators dealing with all of this, and it's like, oh my gosh, this kid must be really mentally ill. You know, this kid, I asked them to do their math homework, or I asked them to sit quietly, and I have a desk thrown, or I have a kid who's hiding under a chair and will not come out,
or rolling around on the floor,
or running away. This kid must be really mentally ill. I've heard educators said that. But then when you look at the child's history, they were really never told no. And when you're never told no, or you're never giving a consequence for inappropriate behavior
or unhealthy coping skills,
then you don't mature appropriately. So then behavior that you might have tried as a 3-year-old, because you're trying to learn the world around you, you think it's still appropriate to do as an 8-year-old. And that's at a time at age 8, if you know normal development or typical development, you are able to sit in a desk, you are able to learn,
start and finish tasks, manage frustration. And again, we don't expect kids at 5 to sit as long as we expect kids at 3rd grade. I mean, there's a difference in that. We give more breaks for younger kids, but there still is an ability to do age appropriate behavior. And so one of the things that we talk about, we're not going to go into detail in this podcast about what normal development is, but we want to give a little bit of information. And so one of the things we talk about is in infancy, often there's that attachment cycle from Foster Klein, where an infant comes to us, they are helpless and hopeless. They cannot take care of themselves. They have to have other people take care of them. And the way they show that need is they just show it through rage, arousal, displeasure. So they cry to get their need met. And that's perfectly normal for an infant to do that. They're supposed to do that because they have no other way. And as that need gets met, there's things that they're learning in infancy that are really, really important to learn. But as that need gets met, they learn the world is safe, they can trust us, and then they can move to the 2nd stage of development. However, what I see often is that crying in the 1st stage to get their way, sometimes when they're supposed to be learning, because they're learning how to talk, they're learning how to walk, they're learning that independence of how to dress themselves, how to do stuff, they still use the crying to get their way versus using talking and learning how to wait for things. And so what happens is those kids will get stuck at that developmental stage and not move to the next developmental stage.
Because I think what happens is we'll kind of use, right, what worked before. So when we're a baby, we have to cry to get our needs met because our caregiver isn't going to know what to do because we can't talk. Sometimes, you know, we're going to use that old way of doing things because we haven't learned the new way yet. We have to learn it. So then we become a toddler. And like you said, we can now talk. We can now walk. We can now do things. We're becoming more independent. We might try to use some of that old way of doing stuff. We might revert back because we're still trying to figure it out. We're still trying to figure out the world. And what we need is when we use old ways of getting like the job done of living life, we need consequences to those things when it's not appropriate so that we learn something new.
And we use those new, more healthy ways and more mature ways. And so we also know that if you look at like Erik Erikson's stages of development, there are some very specific stages. And again, we're not going to go through all those in detail in our podcast. Just knowing that it's important, but really kids can't skip stages. You have to go through them. And sometimes we get excited because maybe our teenager doesn't go through the teenage stages. Well, eventually they go back and redo the stages they skipped. And that's what we're learning as well. It's really important they go through those. But it's really important that kids move through those. And so one of the reasons it's really important to understand typical development is then you understand, like we talked about, when it's not typical. Like this is not normal. This is not normal for a 10-year-old to be throwing temper tantrums at school. That is not normal. There might be other reasons for it. So one reason is we need to know what's typical to know what's not typical. But we also need to know, like if we understand typical development and healthy development and how that progresses, if we have a child acting at a much younger age, we're able to kind of pinpoint where they're at emotionally and developmentally. It gives us really good clues as to what kind of support that they need, what kind of it's accountability and support that they need to mature through those stages. So that's another really good reason that we use it. And we even found when we work with kids with severe behavior, a lot of times we'll see this behavior that we know is much younger behavior. And oftentimes something has happened at that age that's caused them to be stuck. And usually we can pinpoint right where it is based on their behavior.
Based on their behavior and based on maybe the history from the parents.
Yes, which we're really going to get into in our next podcast. We're going to talk about when development goes wrong. And we can really kind of talk about some of those things, which I think is great. But it is great to know, really, if you understand development, it is so much easier to work with their school team or as a parent to know, okay, what does my child need at this stage?
Yeah.
Or, you know what, they haven't matured through this. What is it that they need to get through that?
Well, and I think it kind of the cue in a little is how are they behaving? Like if you're having significant behavioral issues, then as a parent or as an educator, it's looking at, do they need more boundaries around some of this behavior? And what do those boundaries look like? Because for every kid, it's a little different.
Yes.
It's kind of figuring out what is leverage for that child. And then once those boundaries get put in place, if you're not seeing some maturity, and it may take a bit, right? Because like as Foster Klein said, it's, you know, if that behavior has been in place for years, he says 1 month for every year that behavior has been in place. So it might take a bit. For some kids, it's really fast. Like we worked with kids before where, you know, maybe they had a pretty supportive home life but their behavior at school was not appropriate. Well, as soon as some of those boundaries were in place and there was maybe some counseling to help the kid understand themselves and the situation better, all of a sudden they do better. And it's fairly quick.
Yeah, we've seen some really quick changes around when you really understand it from that developmental perspective and what they need. And sometimes it's experience, right? So sometimes it's understanding what kind of experience they need to mature. So from infancy to toddlers, toddlers need experience doing things and feeling frustration and still working through it and knowing that they're okay, that they can handle those emotions. And then again, they need boundaries with the no and how to not get their way, right? But then even with teenagers, they need experience taking risks. They need experience, and you talk about the healthy risks, right? Asking kids out, joining a friendship group.
Trying out for a sport.
Or
a play or cheerleading or whatever it is the child's into. But it's reaching out to peer groups that they're interested in.
Yeah. So taking those healthy risks is what we want them to do. And oftentimes some of our teenagers aren't taking healthy risks.
No.
Or they're not social. Some of our elementary kids are not socializing. They're spending a lot of time on video games. So they're not getting the social experience that helps them mature.
No. And so they act really immature, which also is a turnoff for people who are mature.
Exactly.
So it's understanding if you're seeing significant behavior in a child, it's sometimes a lot more complicated than just like a depression diagnosis, an ADHD diagnosis, or an anxiety. There could be more going on. And so, you know, as an educator or parent, again, another reason why we want to know, if we know what's typical, then we kind of know what they need at each stage to move forward. That's right. Yep, that's right. And so,
so again, if you want to learn more about this, because I think this is a great topic to learn more about. I think it's incredibly important. We do have, we have some online trainings that you can watch. We have some specifically on, let me just see what these ones are. We have them on our teachable.com courses. You can watch an online training. It's called Healing Discipline, Finding Joy in Working with Challenging Students. And we have a whole section in there about child development and what is typical, what is not typical, what is expected with conscious development, what is expected with moving through different stages of development and ages. And we go into detail on that. We also have a book called Healing Discipline, Bringing Hope to Shattered Lives, a guide for educators. You can find that on Amazon, as well as from our site as well.
Yeah, I think it's really thinking about, we want to meet children's needs. They have emotional needs. And when those needs are met, their mental health usually is going okay for the most part.
Exactly. And we have, in our future podcast, we will be talking about what all those needs look like.
Hi again.
Hey, Francis, how are you? How was playing outside?
It was awesome. Okay. At first it wasn't so awesome because I was talking about Minecraft and I was telling them all about my castle, and then they all ran away. And that really hurt my feelings for a second, and I got really sad. But then I thought about what you said. And so I went and I found them by the swings, and I sat quietly. Believe it or not, I sat quietly and I listened, and I learned that Sam really likes to play with Nerf guns. And I thought, wow, that seems pretty cool.
Yeah.
That does, it sounds like you learned a lot, Francis. So what did you learn about like going outside and playing, because you were kind of scared that no one was going to like you?
Well, I think people will like me if I listen to them.
That's right. And so it's kind of one of those things when we listen to other people and we reach out to them, they generally will want to hang out with us.
Wow, that's really cool. I want to hang out with everybody.
Well, and so let's talk about this a little bit, Francis, because I think sometimes people don't always understand maturity, right? So like before, when we started this whole thing, you were having a really hard time listening to other kids.
Yeah.
And doing what they wanted to do, right?
Yeah. I want to play Minecraft.
I know. And so playing Minecraft all the time was kind of keeping you from having friends.
Yeah, I guess I see that now.
And then when you went out and played and you lost friends over not listening, right? You learned how to be a better listener.
I did.
Which helped you make more
friends.
Yes. Hey, there we go. And so that is called maturity.
Isn't that? I'm very mature.
Yes. And if you keep practicing that, you will get more and more mature.
I want to be as mature as you are.
I know. I'm very mature, Francis. It might take a while.
We'll see.
Yeah.
You'll get there. You'll get there, though. I believe it. You're going to get there. And you know what, Francis? You're going to do great things.
I know it.
That's right. That's great. Okay.
Princess, would you like to say goodbye to everybody on our podcast?
Bye, everybody on the podcast.
Bye, Francis. So if you like what you're hearing and you want to learn more, you can go to our website at www.healingchildrenllc.org.
On our website, you can read more about who we are.
You can look at our online trainings.
You can also look at our blogs on a variety of topics.
You can see our most new and up-to-date podcasts.
You can also engage with us in a variety of ways,
such as liking us or following us on social media.
You can even hire us to come in.
Or you could email us or call us.
Exactly. Make sure that you sign up for our email list so that you can get the latest information about what we have to offer, including live trainings in your area.
Yes, so let the healing begin.
Thank you for joining our podcast, The Bumpy Road to Healing.
The Bumpy Road to Healing is sponsored by Healing Children, LLC. We are both educators and mental health professionals, which gives us a unique perspective on working with children both in and out of the school setting who have severe emotional and behavioral concerns.
Our mission is for all children to be emotionally healthy, happy, mature, and responsible. As adults establish healthy relationships and appropriate boundaries, we believe that children are more likely to grow and prosper.
When adults understand the impact of trauma, entitlement, disruptive attachment, and child development, including conscious development, they can better create healing environments for children.
To learn more about us and what we have to offer, go to www.healingchildrenllc.org.